Good morning here. Good morning here from Italy and good afternoon from Malaysia, actually. Today we are spread around, but we still continue to do these updates on the situation in Myanmar because we believe it is important to continue to keep attention what is happening in the country. As usual, we have here Debbie Stothard, who is a well-known activist and director of ALTSEAN-Burma, and she will give the updates of the last 2 weeks, or the last months actually, and then we will have question and answer. This is an activity of SEA Junction, a public venue in Bangkok, focusing on Southeast Asia in collaboration with AJAR Asia. Thank you, Debbie. Please go ahead.
Hi, Leah. Buongiorno. Good afternoon, everybody. There's a storm outside, so if I get cut off, I'll log on as soon as possible. Okay. Ask somebody to share the photo of the camp. I just wanted to start with some terrible news. Can someone share that photo? Yes, no? I don't have share screen. Okay. Yes, thanks, Ron. When I landed in Kuala Lumpur a couple of hours ago, I was shocked to open my messages and see this photo. This is a photo of a camp near Mae Hong Son, and it's quite sad news and quite shocking and angering news, because this is so close to the border. This is Donoku IDP camp. Now, this is a camp where the majority of the people there are teenagers and children. When the military started attacking civilians with airstrikes, especially in the first year following the coup on February 2021, Karenni or Korea State was one of the worst hit. In fact, Karenni, capital Loikor, was one of the first cities to be subjected to airstrikes by the illegal junta. So a large number, more than half of the state had been displaced by military junta's violence. And in an effort to make sure that their children had safety, many parents sent their children to an IDP camp near the Thai border so that they could be safer, and so that they could also be able to try and continue their studies in some way, despite the situation of warfare going on in the country. So it's really shocking, and it's really upsetting to see this photo, because at 1 a.m. today, this camp so close to the Thai-Burmese border is subjected to airstrikes by the illegal junta. One person has died, fortunately not more than that so far. But this is a constant reminder that whatever we're doing, however our day is going, there's between 2 to 3 airstrikes happening every day in Burma. Whether or not we pay attention, it's still happening. And when it's happening, it's killing people and putting people in a state of terror. It's also shocking when you think about it that, yes, there is a war in Ukraine. Russia is still the aggressor invading Ukraine. And Ukraine, so far this year, has had more than 1,300, nearly 1,400 airstrikes in Ukraine. Burma, Myanmar, by comparison, so far this year, has had less than a third of those airstrikes. Yet, despite having less than a third, nearly 300 or 400 airstrikes in Myanmar compared to 1,400 in Ukraine. The number of civilians who have died in Myanmar from airstrikes alone is double from Ukraine. What's the difference? Ukraine is under attack by Russia, a foreign country, which has launched hundreds of airstrikes already this year in Ukraine. But the Ukrainian authorities have been trying to protect civilians and trying to minimize civilian casualties in such attacks. Whereas in Burma, Myanmar, it is the illegal junta that is targeting civilians, not protecting them. In fact, they're not even trying to avoid fighting in civilian areas. If you read the bulletin for the month of June, it's just been published yesterday, and you can go to our website ALTSEAN.org. You will see that there have been airstrikes happening throughout the country, even in places where there had been no fighting. So this illegal junta might see that this area has no fighting, and they would still go and launch an airstrike there on the civilians. So it is evidence, it is deliberate, it's accidental. And so when you and people ask me what's Myra, it's a sign of solidarity, because on 19th of June, Aung San Suu Kyi's birthday, people around the country, nearly 200 people around the country were arrested because they had flowers in their hair, or they were holding flowers, or they were selling flowers. They were suspected of all supporting the flower strike. So apparently, flowers are a threat to national security in Myanmar now. And there's still about 165 people in detention after being detained. And on top of that, someone who filmed soldiers arresting people with flowers in their hair were also arrested. So this is a sign that this junta is becoming increasingly panicky, that they feel so threatened by flowers, they have to go around arresting people all around the country. So, this illegal junta has not been able to gain control of the country. There's still a very vibrant resistance. And still, this junta is launching airstrikes, including on schools, on places of worship, regardless of the religion, and on IDP camps where children are hiding so that they can try and continue their studies despite the war, despite the situation of warfare that is going on, inflicted by the illegal junta on the citizens of their country. And one of the questions that we need to understand too, is that these junta jets may have intruded on Thai airspace in order to attack this IDP camp of children. And some of you were at the World Refugee Day event at SEA Junction on 20th of June and saw various MPs from the FAIR Party and the Moving Forward Party speaking and voicing their concerns. And this is where solidarity is not just an idea, it's a reality, because Thai solidarity for the people in Burma is going to be essential in the weeks ahead and in the days ahead. And there is a lot of Burmese solidarity from the movement in Burma for Thai friends as well, because we know our destinies are inextricably linked. We cannot afford to have Thailand allow these types of airstrikes, especially when they may have intruded into Thai airspace and violated Thai sovereignty. So we've seen so far this year 23,659 armed clashes and attacks on civilians. The official displacement, the number of people who were displaced, became IDPs because of violence, since the coup started, is 1,523,700 people, although other estimates of what's going on the ground is much, much higher. The military junta has been continuing to attack civilian communities, and they've been desperately trying to gain control of the country. And what we saw in our coup watch this month is that in the southern Shan state of the town of Mobie, the military launched a month-long offensive on that town, and it has displaced thousands of people. It's everyday battle, everyday attack. So, and in the middle of this, this is the week of the ASEAN ministerial meeting, the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting in Jakarta, in Indonesia, and all kinds of dramatic revelations are being held, including the revelation that the Thai foreign minister has reported to ASEAN foreign ministers that he has met with Aung San Suu Kyi, and she's fine. That's nice to know, but what about the other 53 million people of Burma, especially those kids who are now trying to get over this terror of being subjected to an airstrike at 1 a.m. so close to the Thai border? What about them? I'd like our host to share the cartoon that my friend Steph published recently about this so-called diplomacy that the Thai foreign minister of the Thai caretaker government has been doing. And here you see Don Pramudwinai saying, "Come on, it's my last opportunity to appear in a political cartoon," having informal meetings, having hosted in a very damaging way the Track 1.5 meeting in Thailand a couple of weeks ago. And Tisana Chunhavan, the MP from New Forward Party for Bangkok, actually said at the SEA Junction event on 20 June, why is he doing that? It's not his job. He's from the caretaker camp. What Thailand has done, besides tolerating airstrikes, lethal airstrikes so close to its border, under this outgoing government, has been so damaging to Thailand and to ASEAN and to the people of Burma. They hosted the 1.5 track meeting in Pattaya, even when they knew that this was part of a divide and rule strategy that the illegal junta has been famous for when they were present in previous juntas of Burma, and when they were doing all these atrocities as the military of that period. So what they are now facing is that the junta, not satisfied with having applied a traditional divide and rule policy for so many decades between Burmans and ethnics and between ethnic peoples themselves, is now working and encouraging some ASEAN members like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam to split ASEAN even further by pursuing Track 1.5. This is extremely horrifying and shocking and disturbing, because it looks like those countries are much more concerned about their own selfish agendas. Those countries, I wouldn't say, but those governments, those those regimes are much more concerned about preserving their ideological agenda than to think quite responsibly about what is going on, what's happening in Myanmar, and how it actually affects regional solidarity and regional human security. So that's something to consider. And one of the frustrations, I think, from human rights activists is that Indonesia, as the chair, has been very, very soft and very diplomatic, and maybe more diplomatic than their own personal or their own private position in Burma. And this boils down to this pressure or social pressure to not to abuse your power as a chair. As the host, you need to be even softer than the participants, which is not helpful. It's not practical. You know, in Southeast Asian culture, in Burma, it's called Anade, and in Malay and in Malaysia and in Indonesia, it's called Segan, like trying not to hurt people's feelings and being extra considerate to make them feel comfortable. Well, there's no point to have Anade or Segan as the chair, because this legal junta is not Anade or not Segan or not hesitant to bomb school children in an IDP camp at 1 a.m. So we should not be hesitant or segan or Anade to push back on that. So I think the challenge now is to encourage Indonesia as the chair. There's 6 months left, it's still not too late, to actually be a little bit more assertive. It's not for the sake of, if not for the sake of Indonesia, at least for the sake of these kids from Burma, as well as the credibility and legitimacy of ASEAN. On the plus point in the past month, we saw Rohingya genocide survivors give testimony to a court in Argentina during which is hearing a universal jurisdiction case on the genocide of the Rohingya. The US has finally moved, instead of sanctioning Myanmar oil and gas enterprise, which is one of the biggest sources of revenue for the illegal junta. They have instead tried to choke the junta's cash flow with imposing sanctions on Myanmar Foreign Trade Bank and the Myanmar Investment and Commercial Bank. But one of the interesting surprises which came out is that it was revealed by activist groups like Justice for Myanmar and others that there have been Austrian, Indian, Israeli, Italian, even Italian companies and Swedish companies have been involved and implicated in the weapons supply chain to the illegal junta. So it is amazing how activists, including activists from Burma and their allies, have been able to dig deep and dig up all this information. And it's telling us that, you know, no matter what's happening in Myanmar, there's still always something we can do. Thank you, Leah, and over back to you.
Thank you very much. And we have already some questions, so I will go directly to the question. One is related to what you have said about Joyce. What do you think of Don's claim that he met indeed Aung Suu Kyi or not? That is, I think, is the claim real or not real? And then the second question, why is Thailand preventing aid to Karenni refugees? So I think we can start with this question while we wait for other questions to arrive.
So the question is, did he or didn't he? And if he did, when? And what did Aung San Suu Kyi say? So I think, you know, I can't tell. I mean, I hope that no matter what his business or personal interests are in the situation in Burma in aligning himself with the illegal junta, that I'm hoping that he didn't lie. But the reality is that a number of things happened in the past month. Apparently, representatives of the junta went to secretly meet Aung San Suu Kyi without her legal counsel presence or without her legal counsel aware of it, and apparently tried to persuade her to cooperate with them to stop so-called terrorism in the country. So they were trying to work out, well, we basically put so much jail terms on her that she'll be in jail, not just in this lifetime, but in her next lifetime. And maybe by killing all these, deliberately attacking all these civilians, maybe she'll be so shocked and so softened up that she'll be willing to compromise and work with the illegal junta. Maybe that's what they thought. But apparently she has not responded. And they're trying to sweeten her up by allowing her to submit her appeals to the various court, to the so-called junta control court, against her convictions and against the cases against her. So perhaps they're trying to dangle that. Let Aung San Suu Kyi meet the Thai Prime Minister, let Aung San Suu Kyi appeals against the convictions be heard, in order to soften her up and put her in a good mood and say, okay, let's forget about this, let's all give up and work hand in hand and hold hands with this this war criminal Min Aung Hlaing. I think that's something that is quite shocking. But yeah, that's probably what's happening. That's what they're hoping. I think in terms of the cross-border aid, what is quite clear is that the Move Forward Party has very clearly said that Prime Minister-elect Pita and also other members of the Move Forward Party, including Puadi Pitsuwan, their foreign affairs advisor, they understand the need to allow cross-border assistance. And actually, it is in Thailand's interest to allow assistance to flow through, because if local people, if community-based organizations are able to send aid across the border into the war zones where people are being subjected to airstrikes, if they are able to access food, shelter, medical supplies, and other needs, it is less likely that those IDPs will want to cross the border into Thailand and become refugees. So, it's a very practical step to allow and facilitate community-based organizations to give aid to communities on the ground, because it actually helps communities stay in their own country. And not many people want to be a refugee. The only reason they come over to Thailand or to India or to China or Bangladesh is that if they are under attack, if they are suffering so much that they cannot survive. So we should do what we can to help them, help their communities help themselves to survive. And that means allowing humanitarian assistance. To be quite honest, the caretaker government and the prior government of Thailand by blocking and interfering with humanitarian assistance across the border, has caused so much harm and has done a lot to prolong and perpetuate what's going on in Burma. So we do want to see a restoration to a sense of solidarity and responsibility. It is in our collective interest to allow cross-border aid. Leah, you're muted.
Sorry. So there are some more questions. Political prisoner has been getting killed this day on the way to new prison. And military released the news that they shot them because these political prisoners were trying to run away. Do you think the international community are getting this kind of information? And then there is a comment also from someone in the group saying that local news say it is not true that Thailand Deputy Prime Minister met with Aung San Suu Kyi. This is a comment, I suppose. But the first is about whether how far these news that political prisoners are getting shot on the way to prison are reaching the international audience. And if I may add, recently, just a few days ago, a report has been issued by the Association for Political Prisoners, and it's very comprehensive report on the conditions of prison in Myanmar. Maybe you can say also something about that.
Thanks, Leah. Yes, everyone, please go to AAPP website and read that report. What has happened is that political prisoners don't stop becoming activists the moment they're in jail. If they see their fellow prisoners being mistreated or disappeared, they will make noise. If they have had an in retaliation, they face even more violence and pressure from the authorities. Now, the killing of the reports of political prisoners being killed while in transit to another place of detention is very disturbing. But this is also the kind of insecurity the authorities have and the kind of brutality they have. In May, there was quite a high-profile prison escape from Townview Prison, and a handful of the prisoners, including I think some of the people who were facing a arbitrary sentence, a death sentence, also escaped. And since then, the junta has been extremely brutal and panicking that this high-profile prison escape will inspire other prisoners to rise up and to also attempt to escape. So let's not forget, there's I think 20,000 political prisoners already. So that's a lot of people who might want to try to escape. And so there has been a deliberate strategy of persecuting political prisoners in countries, in prisons all around Myanmar. And more cases of people being tortured, being beaten up, even disappeared. And now these shady, terrible incidents of how prisoners are killed in transit for apparently attempting to escape. I mean, they are unarmed. There's not much they can do. So I think this is aimed at causing fear among political prisoners not to be so active and not to push back. But yes, please read the AAPP report. It's a good one. Oh, again, you're muted.
Sorry. Yes. Because I am outside, as you can see, so I try to keep it quiet. But okay, I will. The question was really about whether this news would reach the international community, also because there is concern, and this is a follow-up question about Europe and other Western countries being less and less interested into Myanmar, and whether anything can be done about this. So you have news about activities happening in Europe. And then another question relates to the 23rd cabinet meeting of the National Unity Government, which was yesterday, whether there were any interesting news or information or decision that were made at that cabinet meeting.
Okay. I do not have a fly on the wall or a bug in the Zoom of the National Unity Government. So I don't have meetings. Thanks for assuming that I would, but I think we have to wait a little while more for them to announce the outcomes. But we can see that the NUG has been pretty transparent about a bunch of stuff, and especially the Human Rights Minister Almir Min, who actually was much more forthright about what the fact that the NUG needs to be more inclusive, but also that he emphasized in a recent trip to Australia that the NUG does indeed support justice and accountability for Rohingya and other ethnic groups. So looking forward to that. I think what is the bittersweet development is that the NUG finally has a deputy minister who's Rohingya. Aung Chomo has recently been appointed the deputy human rights minister, and it's bittersweet because just a couple of weeks ago, ultra nationalists, pro-junta, someone from them actually stabbed his brother to death in Rangoon and made it very clear that it was because of unfinished activism. So we can already see that it's a very painful situation for Aung Chomo, but it's a bittersweet time for him and for all of us that finally there is officially a member of the NUG cabinet who is Rohingya. Did I answer that question, or was there something else? I've totally lost my track of thought. Leah?
Sorry again.
Yes.
This was about reaching the international community and the silent, growing silence.
It's so frustrating because as far as the international community is concerned, whether it's at UN level or whether it's EU level, they'll always say, oh, we support regional leadership, as though ASEAN is going to become a leader and solve the problem, and then everyone can stand behind ASEAN. Well, that hasn't really worked. Even Indonesia, as the chair, has done its best. And let's not forget, Indonesia was the one who initiated the meeting, which resulted in the adoption of the 5-point consensus in April 2021. They are the ones who started it, even though Brunei was officially the chair. So Indonesia has got some skin in the game. They do understand that they have an obligation as the largest member of ASEAN to consider and to respond to some of the most massive threats, not just to the legitimacy of ASEAN, but also to regional human security. So, it's done that, but you cannot expect ASEAN to solve this when we have the junta aligning itself with somebody doesn't realize Leah's online. Anyway, they don't realize that trying to or assuming that ASEAN can do it alone or the Indonesia chair can do it alone is actually very dangerous to both ASEAN and to Burma. So, we hope that in the next few weeks, or at least this week, Indonesia will start to recognize it's got 6 months left as the chair and 6 months left to be in charge of leading some kind of solution on Burma. And taking a more diplomatic and traditional approach is not going to work. I think at this point, Indonesia needs to recognize, and the chair needs to recognize, that they have to go to the UN and they have to go to the UN Security Council and invite the UN Security Council to work in partnership with Indonesia as the chair and other members of ASEAN to resolve this crisis. It is irresponsible to be complacent and leave everything in the hands of ASEAN, because at this point, ASEAN doesn't have many hands. They are sitting on their hands, so they can't do anything. So, I hope that the Foreign Minister of Indonesia, Retno Marsudi, who's officially the ASEAN chair, will do that outreach and say to the UN Security Council and to other ASEAN dialogue partners, we need to work together on this. And it's a beautiful summer in Europe and other parts in the global north. A lot of people on holidays. There's a Burma fatigue, and people are preoccupied with what's going on in Ukraine. But they also need to understand that this is a situation of equal importance, and And the European Parliament has also made some resolution last a few weeks ago. But they need to recognize what's going on in Burma is equally important. And on that note, it's also useful to know that a couple of days ago, last week, Unfold Burma, the French solidarity organization, along with FIDH, ALTSEAN, and a number of other groups, co-published a report on how French banks have been implicated in supporting the junta, the illegal junta. So that's a really important report. It's available in French, but there's been also some outreach in English. And it's time for those banks to be held accountable for bankrolling or supporting and contributing to the ability of this junta to continue committing atrocity crimes.
Thank you very much. And indeed, would be good to share the link to the French report if available. But there are two more questions from Facebook. First, what do you think of the two new prisons? I am not well informed on this, but it's about two new prisons that have been established in Myanmar. The second question, do you think NUG, NUCC, or CSO should make a statement in solidarity with the Palestinians? So this is a different angle, I suppose, to the Myanmar issue in terms of solidarity to the Palestinians who are under attack from Israel in this case. Whether there should be solidarity and statement made.
Okay, there was some news online about the junta building two new prisons just for political prisoners. If they're doing that, they should make sure they install clean toilets, adequate healthy environment, and definitely Wi-Fi. But okay, I'm not going to joke there. The report has come out of that, and I don't know how far they've proceeded, but it's also another sign to the rest of the world to wake up. They are actually building they're building bigger prisons, new prisons for political prisoners. What does that mean? It means they're planning to arrest more people. They are basically telling everybody, watch out, we're coming to get you. And so if ASEAN actually fails to support sanctions to targeting the junta, if they fail to actually work with the UN Security Council and other stakeholders to ensure that right mix of penalty and inducement to put pressure on this junta, we will continue to see not just more political prisoners for political prisoners being built, more prisons for political prisoners being built. We will continue to see more and more airstrikes and attacks on civilians. So I think that is hugely, hugely problematic. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted by the storm outside, and I forgot the last question. I need to write this down. I'm getting old. I'm getting tired.
Oh, maybe we should tell the people indeed that there is a storm in Malaysia where at the moment Bubi is, and this is what seems to be quite a strong.
Oh yes, it's Palestine. Yeah, I wrote it down.
So it's getting quite some attention from.
Yeah. Okay. The Palestinian
Debbie also
situation.
was about the statement in solidarity with Palestine. Yes, whether there should be a solidarity statement on the.
Look, there's going to be there needs to be there's been quite a lot of solidarity between Burma activists and Palestinian activists, to be quite honest. In fact, there's a lot of solidarity even with Ukrainian activists. Even though many governments are using the war in Ukraine as an excuse not to have any attention on Burma. but there's a lot of solidarity that we have with each other. I think it's up for them to decide, but I think as human rights activists, we should, as a movement, express our solidarity with what's going on and how the people of Palestine have been targeted in very similar ways that the people of Burma have been targeted by their illegal junta. I hope I haven't frozen, and I hope you heard me.
Okay, so I think the last is about the Rohingya and what you say that they have testified. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So about testimony of the Rohingya in Latin America, can you tell us more?
So there's a couple of efforts to gain some kind of accountability for the genocidal violence against the Rohingya that took place between 2016 and 2017. But to be quite honest, the genocide of the Rohingya started way decades before. And that's why in 2006, ALTSEAN actually put out a briefer just outlining why we consider what's been happening with the Rohingya as a form of slow burning genocide right until 2016, when it became a very hot genocide, but the very fast burning genocide. But we do need to understand, firstly, before I go into the universal jurisdiction case, that that what happened against the Rohingya is still happening. There have been hundreds of Rohingya put in jail, including little children, for attempting to leave Rakhine State or to move from one place to another place inside Burma. When Cyclone Mocha hit in the middle of May, the first immediate impact, the community that had the most deaths from Cyclone Mocha within the first week were Rohingya, because they had been confined in very, very flimsy IDP camps close to the coast of Rakhine State. So they were basically being confined in camps in the Cyclone Alley. And the junta's public efforts to evacuate them were very slow. In fact, when Cyclone Mocha hit, as I said in the last update, the junta was actually still attacking people, not protecting them or not evacuating them. So, and so it is quite concerning that the Rohingya have continued to be subjected to genocidal violence and to actions that prolong their impact by being detained in IDP camps in very vulnerable places to cyclone, where Rohingya were the worst hit. I think in the first few days, the report was that 400 Rohingya were killed. So that's a lot. And then in Bangladesh, the Bangladesh government colluding with the illegal junta on this so-called pilot project to send 1,600 Rohingya back to Burma, and then later on more of them, without any guarantees that the Rohingya are going to be, number one, getting their citizenship back. There's no guarantee of restoration of full citizenship. There's no guarantee of protection. There's no guarantee of human rights. There's no guarantee that they will not be subjected to racist violence or discrimination. So I think these kinds of guarantees are still not there. And in Malaysia, here in Malaysia, even in Thailand, Rohingya and other asylum seekers from Burma still are very vulnerable to arrest and harassment. So, you know, it is quite shocking when we talk about civilian protection. In many parts of the world and in most of our minds, civilian protection should be the norm, not the exception. There has to be a default position to commit to the protection of civilians in situations of armed conflict. And while we don't expect ASEAN to have the guts to go inside Burma and try and protect civilians, at least they should protect those civilians who are fleeing atrocity crimes and violence, who have arrived in their territory. They are now in your jurisdiction, protect them. So that's one thing. Now, back to the universal jurisdiction case. What we've seen is that since the end of 2019, officially, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has opened up an investigation into the forced deportation of Rohingya to Bangladesh. So there was a Fatou Bensouda, the former prosecutor, worked out a loophole, a workaround to try and make sure that the Burmese military junta could potentially be held accountable for at least one crime, and that is the crime of forced deportation. Then after that, we had the Gambia lodging a case against Myanmar for violating the convention for the punishment and prevention of the crime of genocide. So that is the UN's court, the International Court of Justice, which unlike the CIA, unlike the ICC can actually detain somebody. The ICJ does not. It merely issues findings and recommendations. And on top of that, there's been an effort to use universal jurisdiction, that in some countries, the courts actually have the willingness and the authority to hear cases of incidents that happen outside of their country, because under the principle of universal jurisdiction, this crime is so serious, it concerns automatically the international community, and the victims will not be given any access to justice in their own country. And so we have some courts willing to receive universal jurisdiction cases. As far as we know, there's one, the one in Argentina over the crime of genocide was lodged in Buenos Aires at the end of 2019, around the same time that there was the official investigation of the ICC started, and the Gambia's suing of the state of Myanmar for committing genocide at the ICJ started. So universal jurisdiction case has been going on for some time. There's been awareness of it since 2019. And finally, we actually have got to the stage 4 years later of seeing actual survivors talk about and testify to the court. There's another universal jurisdiction case that's been lodged in Turkey, in Istanbul, where the Myanmar Accountability Project is actually trying to sue Min Aung Hlaing and it's Min Aung Hlaing and one other, as perpetrators. Sorry, not Min Aung Hlaing and one other. It's actually trying to sue, to complain in the universal jurisdiction case about, this is not about Rohingya, this is actually about the treatment of prisoners in interrogation centers. So, since the coup happened, there's been actually a growth in these notorious interrogation centers where where they have interrogation, which means a lot of torture, in order to force them to convince them to confess. And then for whatever crime they've been committed, regardless of the lack of evidence. So that's the universal jurisdiction case in Turkey to basically address the gross human rights violations and intense human rights violations that are taking place in interrogation centers around the world. So yeah, I think we definitely need to keep an eye and support all these universal jurisdiction cases and accountability news outside of the country, because the judiciary and law enforcement is basically dead in Burma. They're still functioning, but they're zombies. They're not actually doing their job. They're simply implementing what the junta wants them to do.
So related to the Rohingya, the last question from Facebook, the UN still has not got access to deliver aid in Rakhine state. What should they do? Just wait and back the junta? Well, textual words. Yeah. So
Well,
the UN still has access to Rakhine, and what can they do?
how can we say we told you so? all this time, so many NGOs have stayed in the country and basically um, uh, kind of obeyed and appeased this illegal junta, and by that gave them legitimacy and recognition. And they said, no, 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 we have to do this because we have to stay in the country and help. Well, at this point, it is quite clear that that kind of conditionality does not apply. Just to appease the junta and say, yes, I recognize you, and yes, yes, and we're going to help, and let us go to those areas. It hasn't worked out that way. Absolutely. If there was a crystal ball, and then people say, okay, Minawan said, okay, I guarantee you will have access to all the people who need the aid, especially those who are suffering because I launched airstrikes on them. You can go there as long as you acknowledge me, and then you're free to go. You know what? If I was an INGO, I might be tempted to say, okay, I recognize you. Let me go. Let me go wherever I need to go to deliver humanitarian aid. But that's not been the case. I mean, Cyclone Mocha hit Burma, Western Burma, on the 14th of May. The illegal junta put up so many blockades and barriers, and finally, within a couple of weeks, actually officially banned the ability, the transport facilities, and officially banned the ability of these aid organizations to go out there and deliver aid themselves. Basically, they just want to push these NGOs to hand over all that, all those supplies to the junta, and then it's up to the junta to decide who gives out that aid. But the reports from the ground, as you'll read the Coup Watch for the month of June. It was just published yesterday. It is very, very clear. The junta has failed to deliver aid and has actually imposed so many restrictions. It's hurting the people. So I think we do need to firstly recognize that there are people in community workers on the ground taking immense to get aid to the communities who need it. And basically all they need is more resources to do that. That's all. So why don't we as international community, instead of channeling all that money to people, the NGOs in Rangoon who can't leave Rangoon, why don't we give that money directly to community-based organizations to do their job? It is possible, and it not only can be done, it should be done, because in this process, we also need to decolonize humanitarian assistance.
Okay, thank you very much. With this wise word, I think we are closing this update, and we will meet again in 1 month time, hopefully with better connection. Sorry for the disturbance, but I have a mountain in the back and she has a storm, so it's not the ideal condition for holding this Zoom meeting, but we really wanted to go ahead anyway and really continue to give attention to the situation in Myanmar. Continue to follow us and see us in August again. Bye-bye.
Take care, Leah, and everybody. Don't forget to check out all the events that are happening in SEA Junction, and don't forget to check out our Coup Watch. Bye.
Yes. The next event, actually, to do a bit of promotion, is about Peter Jackson, a quite famous scholar on Thailand and many queer issue as well as power dimension in Thailand and mysticism. So I highly recommend. It is done in person at SEA Junction, but will be also broadcast on Facebook. Bye-bye. See you again. Bye.